in order to make personal criticisms of the conduct of any honourable or right honourable member. I now call Deputy Leader Angela Rayner to ask her urgent question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To ask the Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster if he will make a statement on his department's processes for vetting ministerial appointments and managing conflicts of interest.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the Right Honourable Lady for her question, to which it's a pleasure to respond. Starting with ministerial appointments. Appointments made to His Majesty's Government are a matter solely for the Prime Minister, in line with his constitutional position as the Sovereign's principal adviser and the head of the Government. It is for the Prime Minister to recommend individuals for appointment. In considering potential appointments, the Prime Minister may receive advice from the Civil Service on matters of propriety and potential conflicts of interest. The Civil Service has no role in approving or vetoing appointments, as appointments are a matter for the Prime Minister. It would not be appropriate for me to comment further on the advice that may be given during the appointments process. It is critical that all Prime Ministers are able to receive advice in confidence. I would not want to do anything to erode that ability. Once an appointment is made, the process for the management of conflicts of interest and potential conflicts is clear and robust, and follows the processes set out in the Ministerial Code. It is a responsibility of all ministers to ensure that no conflict arises or could reasonably be perceived to arise between their role and their private interests, financial or otherwise. That is ultimately incumbent on the individual, and this is clearly set out in the Ministerial Code. Ministers should declare and manage potential conflicts of interest, working with their Permanent Secretary and the Independent Adviser on ministers' interests. They are under an ongoing duty to further declare relevant changes to their interests. Honourable members will be aware that the Prime Minister has appointed Sir Laurie Magnus as his Independent Adviser on ministers' interests. Sir Laurie will be taking forward the work on the declaration of ministers' interests in line with his published terms of reference. As the Prime Minister confirmed this morning, the Independent Adviser will also be conducting an investigation to establish the facts surrounding the matters concerning my right honourable friend, the member for Stratford-upon-Avon, that have been subject to media reports over the weekend. I know that Sir Laurie will bring integrity and rigour to the role of Independent Adviser, and the outcome of his work will be made public in due course.
Angela Rayner.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for granting this urgent question. But we may have a carousel of ministers, but it's the same old excuses every single time. Reports that the then Chancellor of the Exchequer agreed a settlement with the HMRC, including a penalty, raised serious concerns, not just about that case, but standards in this entire government. Can the Minister tell us if the vetting process raised flags to the former Prime Minister about the original appointment, and when exactly did this Prime Minister know? Does he know if and how this conflict of interest was managed? And why was it kept secret, Mr. Speaker? Is there no system in place to prevent a person being actively investigated for unpaid tax being appointed to run the UK's tax system? Maybe it's that absurd, Mr. Speaker, that no one would ever think it would happen. While we understand the confidentiality of the honours process, surely where there's a serving minister is blocked, there is an overwhelming case for sounding the alarm. So did that happen? And where is the report? If not, why is there a lower bar to get into this cabinet than there is to get a knighthood? Number 10 apparently still doesn't know if other ministers are in dispute over their own taxes. So what is the Prime Minister doing about it? Last week, he told the House all questions had been answered, and he was told that there was no outstanding issues. Yet now, the Independent Adviser is investigating. So will he publish the terms of reference? And why does the Prime Minister need an adviser to tell him that this conduct is unethical? If this isn't a breach of the ministerial code, surely the code itself is wrong, Mr. Speaker, and it's the Prime Minister's job to fix it. If the Prime Minister came clean about what he knew and when, and took responsibility for the conduct of his own cabinet, would we need yet another investigation into another member of his top team? Even now, Number 10 says the party chair retains the Prime Minister's full confidence. How can the Prime Minister claim to deliver the integrity, professionalism and accountability that he promised, while his Conservative Party chair still sits in his cabinet?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We follow a proper process under the Ministerial Code. Interests are required to be declared. They are required to be shared through the Ministerial Code process and discussed with permanent secretaries. I am absolutely confident that the usual process will have been followed in the appointment process by this Prime Minister for the right honourable gentleman. And if there are issues to be raised in respect of historic activities, as was suggested by this weekend's press, that is a matter for the independent adviser to look at. And his findings, the summary of his findings, will be published in due course. Integrity, accountability are critical, as is professionalism. And this government will wait and hear the facts before taking decisions based upon those facts. And I think the Right Honourable Lady would do well to do the same.
Richard Fuller. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think it's a great shame that the processes of the proprietary and ethics team of our civil service are being called into disrepute by the comments by the Honourable Lady opposite. We have to accept in public life there are times when you may be asked to serve in government. When you go through that process, you are required, quite rightly, to disclose absolutely everything that might cause conflict with you being a Minister of the Crown. Does my right honourable friend agree that that process can only survive when there is both confidentiality about your disclosures and tolerance on all sides whilst that process is completed?
Mr. Speaker, I thank my honourable friend for what he said is absolutely right. There is, for people being called into government, there is a proper process. There is a requirement for full disclosure. And for that process to continue to be meaningful and to work for decades into the future, you need to retain confidentiality. Confidentiality has to be part of it, and the right way forward, when issues have been raised, is for the independent adviser to look into it, as indeed he is doing.
SNP spokesperson John Nicholson.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Here's what we know about the appointment of the BBC chair. The BBC chair, Richard Sharp, helped arrange a £600,000 loan for the Right Honourable Member for Uxbridge and South Ruislip, weeks before he was chosen by the former Prime Minister to become BBC chair. Mr. Sharp appeared before the Culture Select Committee on which I sit. We grilled him about his £400,000 gift to the Conservative Party. However, he did not disclose his role in getting the man appointing him a huge loan. Mr. Sharp, the former Prime Minister, and the cousin offering the loan dined together at Chequers pre-loan and pre-appointment. The former Prime Minister's spokesperson says, "So what? Big deal." The Cabinet Office ethics team told the former Prime Minister to stop talking to Mr. Sharp about his finances. Ministers told other applicants not to waste their time applying. The appointment was to go to the Right Honourable Member for Uxbridge and South Ruislip's friend, the Tory donor. Even by the grubby standards of this government, it's all a bit banana republic, is it not?
Who's the Chief Executive, SNP?
Mr. Speaker, I thank the Honourable for his question. As the Honourable Gentleman knows, there was a very robust process in place for the appointment of the Chairman of the BBC, including a pre-appointment hearing. I read the transcript this morning in which the Honourable Gentleman played his usual prominent role in grilling the appointee, pre-appointment. It was an incredibly robust process with an independent panel of 5 members who went through that process. And just to reassure the House, I understand that the Commissioner in Public Appointments is going to double-check that that process was absolutely consistent with the proper governance expected of these appointments. And I know that the Chairman of the BBC has invited the Senior Non-Executive Director of the BBC to discuss with the Board to make certain that all relevant conflicts of interest were properly disclosed. So there are two processes that are ongoing, but this was a very robust process.
Angela Richards.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I shouldn't be astonished, but I am astonished at the brass neck of the Shadow Leader of the Opposition for suggesting that the Prime Minister didn't need to ask his independent adviser on this when they spent months calling for an independent adviser to be appointed. Is my right honourable friend aware of any plans by the independent adviser to publish an updated list of ministerial interests?
Minister.
I thank the Honourable Lady, and she's absolutely right. The other side of this House have been calling for an independent adviser for months. One gets appointed, and it's not good enough. You need to take all the decisions by yourself, devoid of all the facts. And it is useful to have an independent adviser in hand to deal with these issues when it is appropriate. And yes, to reassure the Honourable Lady, my understanding is that the independent adviser plans to do a publication on ministerial interest prior to his report in May.
Karen Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Public Administration Constitutional Affairs Committee on SIT is ready to help and looks forward to meeting the new ethics advisor. I think from what the Minister has said, the Prime Minister has said that there are questions to be answered. The Minister has been very careful to say that the filling of the ministerial code is up to the individual, which is correct. So is he trying to tell us, did the Prime Minister know that the member for Stratford was due to be investigated?
Minister.
The Prime Minister will have had the benefit of the usual appointments process being undertaken, so he would have had full disclosure regarding the interests of the Right Honourable gentleman as disclosed at the time when the Prime Minister made his appointment as Chairman of the Conservative Party.
Mahendra.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Prime Minister has correctly asked his independent adviser on ministerial interests to establish the facts on this matter. Does my right honourable friend agree that we must not prejudge the outcome and allow this process to conclude?
I do agree, Mr. Speaker. That is the purpose of having an independent adviser. He's been asked to investigate, to work out exactly what the facts are, and we should not. It's ill-judged to decide before you actually know all the facts that pertain. That is that process we're undergoing at the moment.
Christine Jardine.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I'm sure we all remember that first speech from Downing Street when the Prime Minister promised us integrity, professionalism and accountability at every level. Unfortunately, we've seen precious little evidence of that so far. And this weekend, yet more doubt has been heaped in the minds of the electorate, my constituents certainly, about whether they can trust politicians in general. So does the Minister accept that unless something is done very quickly about the vetting and management of conflicts of interest, further damage is going to be done in the confidence in this place of the British public?
Mr. Speaker, we have the Nolan Principles and we have the Ministerial Code. Both are extremely important documents and extremely important approaches. The Honourable Lady refers to professionalism and she's right. But part of professionalism is making certain you take decisions based on all the facts. And I know she'll respect the fact that it is useful to have those established, but I concede to her definitely those should be established swiftly.
David Johnson.
Mr. Speaker, does my right honourable friend agree that beneath the bluster from the benches opposite, what they're really saying is there's various information they don't know the answer to, that they don't have the facts about, not least because HMRC doesn't comment on the individual tax affairs of people, and therefore it's absolutely right the independent advisor should be allowed to collect those facts and publish them to set the record straight.
Minister.
Indeed, I've got absolutely no doubt my right honourable friend will cooperate in every way with the independent adviser to make certain that all the facts are known. He will go through that process. The independent adviser, in due course, will come to his conclusions, and the summarised conclusions will indeed be published.
Richard Bergen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Prime Minister stood on the steps of 10 Downing Street and promised the nation that he would act with integrity, and yet here we are again. Isn't this whole affair yet another point of proof that where there are conflicts of interest, it's far more likely you're going to have conflicts of interest when you've got a government of the super rich for the super rich.
Madam Deputy Speaker, I could never have guessed I'd have a question along those lines from the honourable gentleman. The important thing, the Prime Minister said, integrity, accountability and professionalism. That is absolutely right. That absolutely underpins this government, and part of that is making certain you have the facts, and that is what we are undertaking to do through the auspices of the independent adviser.
Clive Efford.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The ministerial code seems to now be a set of guidelines. This is starting to sound like a script from Pirates of the Caribbean. But can I ask the Minister, if someone has disclosed that they are in dispute with the Inland Revenue about their taxes, is it appropriate to then appoint that person as the Chancellor of the Exchequer? Surely that matter should have been resolved before such an appointment took place.
Minister?
The Honourable Gentleman will have to excuse me. I do not know what was disclosed, and nor does the Honourable Gentleman. That is why we have an independent adviser making certain that we have the facts addressed.
Sir Stephen Timms.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The current chairman of the Conservative Party went on to television before he settled his tax debt and said that his tax affairs were, quote, fully paid and up to date. We now know that statement was untrue, don't we?
Minister?
I've got a great deal of respect for the Honourable Gentleman, but he knows I don't know the answer to that question. I genuinely don't. But I've got no doubt that the work of the independent adviser will establish the facts, and that will be reported to the Prime Minister.
Stella Creasy.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The challenge here for the Minister is that the original allegations arose in July of last year, publicly, and subsequent evidence that indeed lawyers were instructed to try and suppress those allegations, well before any appointment made by his political party or indeed by the Prime Minister. Now, the Minister talks about allegations arising this weekend. Whose due diligence was lacking? Is it the Cabinet Office? Is it the Conservative Office? Or are we just not being told the whole truth on this matter?
Minister.
The full process would have been undergone in terms of my right honourable friend's appointment to the government as chairman of the Conservative Party, or appointment to the Cabinet Office, when he was appointed by this Prime Minister. That was clearly a period after the July commentary in the press. So I don't know what was disclosed. I imagine everything was disclosed, but that is a matter for the independent adviser to ascertain.
Ben Bradshaw.
BBC journalists have to spend a great deal of their time defending the BBC's impartiality and integrity from criticisms from all sides in this country. How is their job made easier by the revelation that the current BBC chairman involved himself in the private financial affairs of a former Prime Minister before he was appointed to the job, something that both he and the Prime Minister should, under civil service rules and BBC rules, have disclosed to the Independent Appointments Commission, which apparently, according to former Commissioner Sir Peter Riddle, neither did?
Minister.
My understanding is that both the Right Honourable Member for Uxbridge and the gentleman in question have both said that no financial advice was provided from one to the other. That's my understanding. And I do know that the chairman of the BBC has invited the senior non-executive of the BBC to look into his disclosures to make certain everything was done properly. A process that also will be undertaken by William Shawcross as the Commissioner for Public Appointments to make certain that that process, which appeared to be an extremely robust process, indeed involved drilling before the honourable gentleman and others in front of the Select Committee, was absolutely consistent with the government's rules on these appointments.
Kevin Brennan.
Well, actually, that's an interesting point the Minister's just making, because on that very point, of course, before he appeared before the Select Committee, the candidate had to fill in a questionnaire, and he had to answer the question, do you currently or potentially have a business, financial or non-pecuniary interest or commitment that might give rise to the perception of a conflict of interest if you are appointed? Now, doesn't the Minister agree that helping to arrange an £800,000 loan for the person ultimately responsible for your appointment should have been declared in response to that question.
Minister.
But the honourable gentleman is making a statement there about helping to arrange a loan. I don't know the basis on which he makes that assertion, but I know that all matters to do with any conflicts of interest or perception of conflicts of interest are going to be looked at by the BBC under that process established by the chairman.
Dawn Butler.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Madam Deputy Speaker, on Wednesday, the Prime Minister stated there were no outstanding issues. By the weekend, the Prime Minister ordered an independent investigation. Can the Minister ensure that all of the information that escalated this from nothing to see to an internal independent investigation is placed in the library?
Minister.
What is absolutely the case is that a summary of the findings of the independent advisor and the outcome of that work will be shared with this House.
Peter Dowd.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. A person is 23 times more likely to be prosecuted for benefit irregularities than tax irregularities. Yet tax irregularities lose the economy 9 times more. So does the government have any plans to redress this imbalance?
Absolutely. Minister.
There is a huge focus across government, and I know this from my work inside the Cabinet Office, in making certain that we get after tax evasion in all its forms. It's incredibly important that we do, and that we cut waste across government, particularly when it comes out of fraudulent behaviour. That's what we do every day. HMRC is responsible for following up and making certain that people pay the tax that's owed.
Andy MacDonald.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I just want to tell the House, from my constituents, I'm hearing that they are heartily sick and tired of reading these stories incessantly about tax irregularities, cheating and fraud, and the self-serving elite. And faith in politics and in this institution is at an all-time low, as it is with the BBC in light of these revelations. And the one common denominator, Madam Deputy Speaker, is that party opposite. And this is only ever going to be cleaned up once this lot are out of the door and out of government.
I'm not certain of the question was, but I certainly disagree with the honourable gentleman in terms of the tone he takes. And I do think we have an incredibly valuable organisation in the form of the BBC. I, for one, support it. And I think it's unfortunate to start making allegations about the whole of the BBC on the basis of something, the facts of which are disputed.
Cat Smith.
Are there any other government ministers currently in dispute with the HMRC around their tax arrangements?
Minister.
This is a matter for individual ministers to talk to go through the proper process for the ministerial code. That's what everybody does. That is a requirement under this government, as it's been the requirement under all governments. So you have full disclosure in that process, and you need to talk to your permanent secretary, and it's absolutely critical that no conflicts of interest are established or indeed perceived conflicts of interest are established.
Alex Cunningham.
Right, Madam Deputy Speaker. Will the inquiry confirm the nature of the agreement between the Right Honourable Member for Stratford-on-Avon and HMRC?
Minister.
I've got every confidence my right honourable friend, the member from Stratford-upon-Avon, will be totally open with the independent advisor. This is an independent advisor conducting a report for the Prime Minister, and I'm sure he will be absolutely open with the independent advisor so that the facts can be fully established.
Toby Perkins.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. With respect, the Minister is attempting to balance on the head of a pin with regard to Richard Sharp's involvement in the loan to the Prime Minister, former Prime Minister. He may not have provided advice, he may not have arranged it, but he clearly was involved in the introduction. And on that basis, should he not have made the declaration referred to by my honourable friend from Cardiff West when he appeared in front of the committee?
Minister.
Obviously, Mr. Sharp felt that that was not required. That was not the case. I understand that a process was put in place to separate him from the loan arrangements. And as I say, Mr. Sharp has asked the senior non-executive director at the BBC to ensure that all matters in terms of disclosure were followed correctly by him in his process.
Luke Pollard.
Deputy Speaker, can the Minister tell us if any government ministers were informed that the Conservative Party chair was blocked from receiving an honour? And if so, did the government take any action after receiving that news?
Minister.
I genuinely don't know the answer to that question, Madam Deputy Speaker. There is a process for honours and awards which is kept highly confidential. I don't know whether the Right Honourable Gentleman was up for an award or indeed whether that was blocked. So it would have been a very tight process. I don't know if there's any ministerial involvement in that process.
Tamanjit Singh Desi.
Thank you very much. Madam Deputy Speaker, here we go once again, debating after being angered by the lack of ethics and alleged serious wrongdoing by government ministers. But despite the Prime Minister making big promises about integrity, professionalism and accountability, we know he's going to do diddly squat about it because he is too weak, because he is beholden to those very cabinet ministers to cling on to power somehow. So does the Minister not think that the British people will smell a rat if they see the Conservative Party chairman, who as Chancellor was supposed to be in charge of the government's finances at the time, whilst trying to strike a multi-million-pound tax deal with the HMRC for alleged serious wrongdoing?
The Honourable Gentleman's view of the government and mine come from different perspectives. I've got a huge amount of time for my right honourable friend, the Prime Minister, who's leading this government in the right directions, and I have to say that he is unwise, I think, to make take a view on the outcome of an inquiry that has not yet properly commenced. But it will. The independent adviser will get there and will establish the facts.
Simon Lightwood.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Can the Minister confirm whether the Right Honourable Member for Stratford-on-Avon will make his tax affairs transparent to any investigation by the independent adviser? And can the Minister confirm that the Prime Minister will set that as a requirement of the investigation?
Minister.
I thank the Honourable Member for his question. As I absolutely make clear, I cannot imagine circumstances under which my right honourable friend would not wish to be fully transparent with the independent adviser. That would be necessary for him to do his job, and that will enable him to establish the facts.
Sir Chris Bryant.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I'm not going to get into the specifics of the individuals concerned, but following on from the question from the Honourable Lady from Guildford, I do want to know about the specifics of why we don't have in the public domain yet the financial interests of all ministers. The list that's on the website at the moment is 243 days old. It's not even an accurate list of ministers. It's not even an accurate list of the last set of ministers or the set of ministers before that. It's 90 days since this government was in place. There are people who are now ministers who weren't even a member of either house. Who don't appear anywhere. Surely, the public ought to know within a week or so of a minister being appointed what all their financial interests are. Why can't we have that? And why have we got to wait another 3 months, is what he said earlier. Another 3 months before we find out what all the financial interests are of ministers. We should know it now.
Minister.
It may be 3 months, it may be 3 hours, Madam Deputy Speaker. I said by May, is my understanding. So I can't commit to a date because I'm not the independent adviser, and he has got work to do to publish those, but my understanding is that there will be an updated list of financial interests published before his report is out in May. That's my understanding.
Thank the Minister for answering the urgent question. Urgent question, Ed Miliband.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. To ask the